If you're listening to something like a Wes Montgomery record, Boss Guitar, whatever, could you tell what Wes was playing? Fried pies, the chord solos, things like that. Could you hear them and you'd be like, I know those voicings. I know what that is.
I knew about maybe 10% of what he was playing. I had to find out what he was trying to get over. What was the main message? What was he trying to say to the public? You know, and could I say it differently? I found out that I could say it differently. Oh, I wonder why he never added this note to his octaves. Well, this is pretty. I wonder why Wes never thought of that. I can do something even Wes Montgomery can't do. And Creed Taylor told me that one day when Wes passed away. I was doing records, and everybody was trying to say, George Benson can't take over for Wes Montgomery, which I was not trying to do because I knew that was impossible. There's only one Wes Montgomery in one lifetime. So I was playing Chattanooga Choo Choo. It had a very, very country vibe, you know. But I put a little R&B, a little jazz licks on top. I re-harmonized the song during my solo section only.
Okay.
Because people can't hear that.
Yeah.
You know, they listen for the melody. Could you still hum the melody? Yes. You could hum the melody all the way through. And when I got finished playing it, Creed Taylor came over and said, Wes Montgomery couldn't do that. That's the kind of thing you would never hear from Creed Taylor. An amazing thing happened with Wes Montgomery. He was my friend. You know, I used to try to get him to teach me. He said, no, I can't teach you. He was the only guy I met that said that. No, I can't teach you anything. I said, why not? He said, I'm too busy trying to learn to play myself. That's what I said when he said, oh, Wes, no, man, get out. I understand what he means now. It took me all my life to understand what he was trying to say. But he said something very important, reason why we have this house today. One day he approached his boss, the owner of the record company, Herb Alpert, and he said, you ever heard of a kid named George Benson? Because I was still in my early 20s then, I guess. And Herb Alpert said, no. He said, you will. And that's all he said. When he passed away, Herb Alpert asked Creed Taylor, have you ever heard of a kid named George Benson? He said, yeah, I know him. He said, you know him? You think you could get him for my record company? He said, I'll try. And that's how I got with the A&M Records and bought my first house.
Wow, amazing.
I'll be forever grateful to the cat. Not just for that, but for so many things. He allowed me to hang with him when he wouldn't allow nobody else to hang. Because he knew I didn't have a jealous bone in my body. I didn't worship him, but I loved what he was doing. And I recognized his mastery. I knew pretty much who he was and why he would go down in history.
Now we talked earlier about Joe Pass. You probably saw Joe play during that time as well. Yeah. And would you ever go see Joe play and hang out and jam with him?
Yeah. I would never jam with him because anybody who's crazy enough to do that is going to get eaten up. He understood the guitar and all of its implications from the time, I guess he was young and heard the masters as he came up. But he had a little gypsy in him, I called him the American gypsy. He was slightly different than everybody else. In addition to all that mastery, and his mastery of the finger style added a beautiful color to his playing. My favorite guitar song, I think, in history is a song called Terry that he did with the Gerald Wilson band. I remember burning the record out and I couldn't find it anymore, and I ran into Pat Martino. He said, I got a copy of it. You can have my copy. I said, he's giving it away, you know, because he was also Pat Martino's favorite. Him and I used to haggle about which one was the greatest. Pat would talk about Wes Montgomery. At first he talked about Joe Pass. And I talked about Wes Montgomery. Then after I heard Joe Pass play, I said, hey man, I like Joe Pass. He said, I like Wes Montgomery. So we had a little switch thing going there for a while.
I'd like to take a second to talk to you about this channel. This is actually Rick Beato 2. I've had it since the beginning of my main channel, and many of you are not subscribed. As a matter of fact, 87% of the people that watch this channel regularly are not subscribed. So I encourage you to hit the subscribe button on this channel and on my main channel. This will help me get even more of my dream guests and help continue to grow both channels. Thank you. When I play this for you, do you remember this? Does it take you back to that time period?
Like it was yesterday. I can't believe all the years that have passed by since we did this. Because I put this band together out of guys I bumped into throughout my tours on the road. The kid, Ronnie Foster, he was 15 years old. He came to a rehearsal with Jimmy Smith, the great organ player. He wanted to hear him play, so he came to a sound check that he was having at a hotel. We were coming into in that hotel, I was just leaving it, I can't remember now. And he was standing in back of Jimmy, watching his hands while he was playing the organ. And so every time Jimmy played something, he would lean over his shoulder and play the same thing. He's 15 years old. And Jimmy Smith has an amazing technique. So this kid was playing everything he saw. And he played like me, by ear. So I never forgot that. I took his number, and years later, I remembered him. He moved to New York. I asked him to join my band. He was an organ player. I said, I don't need an organ. The organ, I think, is moving on. I'm putting together a band with electric piano. Would you like to play electric piano with my band? He said, George, I'm not a piano player. I said, I play with the baddest piano players in the world. I think you play enough piano to make it interesting. So on his first gig, he had something he had never had in his life, a standing ovation on his first solo he ever played. To me, he was the greatest synthesizer player in the world. And he shaped the synthesizer. He stayed on Mr. Moog, who invented it, the one he played, and made him the Polymoog. He forced him to design a Polymoog. He said, man, I can't play no chords on this thing. Make it so I can play chords. And the man got tired of hearing him, so he made one that you can play chords on.